Hi everybody, I'm Lila Lawson. I hope you're doing well today and that you're maintaining that social distance and staying home and finding ways to occupy your time. I am doing the second in a set of readings for you today. If you are a lover of literature or you just like having people read to you, something you can nap to if nothing else, I guess. Today is April 5th, so I am going to be reading from my upcoming novel, Dead Rockstar, which the cover reveal for just happened this past Friday. And if you haven't seen the cover yet, you have to hop to social media, find me on Twitter or Instagram or whatever and check it out, because it is the coolest cover ever. I have to give Parliament House Press mad props because that is a freaking awesome cover. But today being April 5th is timely for a novel called Dead Rockstar, because as many of you may know, if you're a grunge fan or just a music fan in general, today is the anniversary of Kurt Cobain of Nirvana's death, as well as that of Lane Staley, who was the frontman for Alice in Chains, which were two pivotal bands in the grunge scene in the 90s. And if you're a 90s kid like I am, that means a lot to you. Obviously, I'm repping here. So I'm going to read from Dead Rockstar, which comes out in November. And the book is basically kind of a fangirl's dream come true. It's very, very different from my historical fiction work, which you may be familiar with. So if you like that stuff, this is definitely quite different. It's funny, it's kind of a thriller, it's campy, fantasy, all of that stuff tied up into one. And I thought it would be especially timely to read now, not just because of my cover reveal, but because it's April. And April is a strange and sad month for people who love music. Not only do we commemorate Kurt Cobain and Lane Staley this month, but next week will be the 10-year anniversary of the death of Peter Steele, who was the lead singer of Typo Negative, one of my very favorite bands and inspiration for the book, as well as Prince and a whole host of other artists who died in April. So yeah, it's kind of a strange time, which it's strange enough for us all as it is right now. So yeah, what are you going to do? So I'm going to read a little bit from Dead Rockstar. I'm going to read from the very beginning, which kind of starts you off with a tease. I can't give you too much. You got to buy that book in November, guys. And I'm reading from my laptop because the book is not out yet. So this might be a little awkward, but I'll do my best. And here we go. This is Dead Rockstar. Oh, you think your life is complicated? Try falling in love with a dead rock star, one you've brought back, totally on accident, from the dead. I mean, a good man is hard to find, right? Sometimes you gotta get a little creative. Let me start over. My name is Stormy Spooner. I'm a lifelong atheist, a vegan, a librarian, and I'm a necromancer. How did I get into this mess? I wear glasses, for fuck's sake. I'd like to say that your guess is as good as mine, but it was my own fault. You wouldn't be the first to tell me that it's impossible to be a necromancer and an atheist. As my best friend Sloane loves to tell me, you don't even believe in anything. How can you practice magic if you don't believe in it? And once I would have agreed. I didn't believe in magic, and I sure as hell didn't practice it. What I did was more of a pathetic drunken fumbling that accidentally hit the mark. Honestly, it was just supposed to be a joke. When I announced to Sloane, between sips of our dark mint and mocha iced coffees, that sweltering humid summer day, that I was going to become a necromancer and raise the dead, one dead specifically, I was just kidding around. I have a dark, twisted sense of humor. It gets me into trouble a lot, but this time it got me some dead guy with pretty green eyes and hair so black it absorbs the light. Oh, come on, haven't you ever had a crush on a dead guy? You know you have. Jim Morrison maybe, Jimi Hendrix, James Dean. All the hot dead guys have names that start with J, seems like, except for my dead guy. The guy whose green eyes stared down at me from posters on my wall all throughout my lusty teenage years. The guy whose voice ignited a million fantasies. The guy whose death at the maddeningly young age of 38 had haunted me for years. The guy who had faded into an enigma, just another dead rock star in a sea of dead rock stars. Pick your poison, they're a dime a dozen. My dead guy was never really famous. Not the kind of famous that John Lennon was, another J. Or Madonna or Prince. He was a blip, a cult favorite, a moment in time. More people these days haven't heard of him than have. My dead guy is what you call obscure, and why Sloane loves to joke that I'm a hipster. My dead guy, the enigmatic, dark, and mildly terrifying Philip DeVille, former lead singer and bassist and sometimes harmonica player of the Bloomer Demons, is my favorite musician of all time and the orchestrator of my sexuality. I can't put too fine a point on it, really. He was the guy. My dead guy. Well, until he wasn't. Dead, I mean. You're just going to have to trust me on this, and I'll tell you the story, but let's just get it out of the way right out of the gate. There's no hiding the dude. He did his best. It's just not in his essence to be hidden. And honestly, what's the point? My dead guy is no longer dead. He's very much alive, or undead, which I think he'd prefer, because it has that goth sort of feel to it, and that's what gets him all hot and bothered, which is how I like him. Believe it or don't, but I raise the dead. I'm a necromancer, and unfortunately, because of a certain hot undead Rockstar, I'm going to have to do it again. I remember the moment when the thought first came to me. I was guzzling my mint mocha, whatever, on my lunch break, enjoying the sweet iciness on my tongue, letting it flow down my throat until I felt the first pangs of brain freeze in my temple. I'm going to become a necromancer, I announced. Sloane, my best friend since childhood, was sitting across from me at the Jitterbug, our favorite coffee shop, and the place where we usually met on our breaks, which we always took together. It was the only place in town that made a reasonable knockoff of a frappuccino that's vegan. Well, that's fucking stupid, she replied, without missing a beat. Why? I demanded. For starters, genius, you're an atheist. A smug atheist. It's all you talk about, Sagan and Hawking and shit, and how religion is the opiate of the masses. Necromancy is magic. How many times have you told me you don't believe anything remotely spiritual or paranormal? It's all about intention, I countered. She, as a relapsed Christian, her term, couldn't be more knowledgeable on this subject than me. I'm a tad haughty about my intellect. It's a librarian thing. But how can you have the intention if you don't believe in it, she argued, and I sniffed. Not to mention its utter hawk and buoy. Hawk and what? Hawk and buoy. She smirked at me from beneath her perfectly coiffed blonde bangs. Sloane is your usual nightmare. Long blonde hair, blue eyes, her parents loved her enough to get her braces, blah, blah, blah. All of that, and her ass is absolutely huge. She has the gall to complain about it, too. Meanwhile, I'm sitting on my pancake bottom, hating her. Okay, you were either going for cock and bull or boo hockey, but you didn't land on either. Fuck you, she said, popping a chocolate-covered espresso bean in her mouth. Caffeine junkies, the both of us. We lived at the Jitterbug year-round. We decided back in college, while in the midst of the 90s Friends craze, that we needed our own central perk. While the shenanigans of Phoebe and Chandler had become dated and cheesy, Sloane and I had retained our shenanigans of Phoebe and Chandler, and loved to have coffee and snark at our favorite artsy table. People write song lyrics on it in Sharpie, and that's the kind of overtly sincere kitsch that I can appreciate, especially since we're right on the outskirts of Bumfuck, aka Brunswick, Georgia, where creativity goes to die. I decided to change tactics. If you could bring one dead celebrity back to Earth for the night, I asked her, scooping a dollop of chocolate-tinted coconut cream on my spoon and plopping it on my tongue, who would it be and why? She didn't miss a beat. Mr. Rogers, she said, taking a somehow prim sip of her drink. He likes me just the way I am, and I bet he gives the best hugs. I was thinking more along the line of dead rock stars, you Girl Scout. I spooned up more cream, like one you'd want to have sex with. Oh, hard pass then, she said, pulling out her chapstick and running it over her lips. She did that about 50 times a day. Chapstick addiction is a real thing, and it's weird. Come on, you're a slut. You must have one. She smirked. Be that as it may, I have no desire for a night with some bloated, booze-sucked addict who croons in my ear off-key while he's trying to get... I've dated enough live musicians to know I don't want a dead one. That was horribly unfair, but I let it slide. Sloane is a mean bitch at heart, and it does no good to point it out. She gets worse by the hour. I swear, she wakes up Susie Sunshine, and by the time she uses her withered claws to pull down her bedclothes, she's turned into a cackling old crone. Why she'd want to meet Mr. Rogers, I'd never know. She'd have him running, screaming for the hills. She eats gentlemen for breakfast and burps up their bones. She's the perfect muse for an angsty boy-man songwriter, which is why it was so irritating that she wouldn't play along. I actually have someone in mind, I began again. I don't like being derailed when I'm on a thought bender. Of course you do, she said with a groan. Philip DeVille, a.k.a. the Turquoise Devil, a.k.a. the Robert Plant wannabe that you've been wanting to bone since you were 14. Who has been rotting in his grave for over 20 years, and newsflash, Stormy, wasn't even that famous when he was alive, she said, smirking. God, if you're going to be one of those obsessive fangirls about this shit, couldn't you pick somebody everybody likes so we can at least relate? Like who? I demanded. John Lennon? She rolled her eyes. Get with the decade, man. No, he's too sincere, too serious, just like you. You need somebody fun, somebody to dust the cobwebs from your ass. How about a live person? What about Steven Tyler? I glared at her. Steven was an androgynous fox back in the day, I'll give you that. But he's what, 70? He's old enough to be my grandfather. It's not like Philip DeVille was a millennial, she pointed out. If he was in his late 30s when he died, and it's 2019 now... You're missing the point entirely, I said, irritated. It isn't what age he'd be now. He's been on ice, so to speak, for over 20 years. If I raised him, from the dead, he'd still be 38. That's older than me, but not like Woody Allen level creepy. I flashed her a look. Some people I know don't mind a little May December, but... So you're going to become the world's first atheist vegan necromancer, she interrupted me. I didn't like her tone. She made it sound crazy. And you're trying to make it non-creepy. Yes, I smiled. Precisely. I sucked the dregs of the icy coffee from my cup and tossed it across the table towards the trash bin where it bounced off the lid and hit the floor, spraying mint mocha everywhere. That kind of stuff happens to me a lot. I jumped up, muttering apologies to the bored-looking cashier, and grabbed a handful of napkins. I'm going to raise the dead. You're going to reanimate all 6'5" of Philip DeVille's mostly decomposed, festering corpse. You understand rightly, I said. I grabbed another wad of napkins. You're an idiot, Spooner. Sloane peered at me sideways. Did you bring the flask to work again today, nipping a little Jim Beam in between shelving textbooks? I resent that. I did have my flask with me that day, but she didn't need to know that. Remember that vinyl I got? I just found these weird printed lyrics and I thought maybe. I shrugged, mopping up puddled coffee. It'd be fun. To try. You in? If it means I have to listen to fucking Bloomer Demons one more time on my night off, then no. I am decidedly not in. Sloane finished her own beverage and tossed it at the bin. As expected, it sailed right in. No, I love you, Stormy, but I'm out. Anyway, I got a date tonight. I plan to get laid by, a live dude. Killjoy. Sorry, I've been trying to cinch this guy forever. He's in med school, studying to be a surgeon. He might actually be able to find the... Dude, I interrupted her, gesturing with my head toward the legging-clad soccer mom at the counter, holding up her gold Amex like a trophy. You're kind of loud. I think even Karen would agree that men should know basic female anatomy, Sloane retorted, but she lowered her voice. After another moment watching me clean up my mess, she moved off her chair and started to help me. But maybe I'll come by in the morning, bring you a celebratory bagel, one for you and your zombie boy. Think he'd want a schmear? I think he'd rather have donuts. I'd read once in Philip's tour writer that he'd always ask for powdered sugar donuts. There was a joke there, a whole "is that cocaine on his upper lip or powdered sugar" thing, that some tabloid had printed once, but I preferred to think he just really liked sweets. She looked at me and shook her head. There was mocha on my shoe. I've got to get back to work. Yeah, me too. Try not to get too blitzed and attempt to summon a Dementor in the card catalog. That doesn't even make sense. First of all, we haven't had card catalogs since like 20 years ago. Where have you been? And they weren't a place you could go, like a room. It was literally just a cabinet with, oh, forget it. And if you'd actually read Harry Potter, you'd know that Dementors aren't summoned. But she was already halfway out the door of the coffee shop. Sloane turned back to me with a grin. Catch you later, necromancer. Hope he rises to the occasion. I could still hear her cackling as the heavy glass door shut behind her. Sometimes I hated Sloane. You're joking around, just trying to get a rise out of her, and she refuses to be ruffled. So you end up taking your whole shit seriously, and you end up doing all sorts of failed jokes out of spite just to prove you can, even though you never meant to begin with. Which is how I got into all this trouble in the first place. Fucking Sloane. So, I'm going to leave it there. As you can tell, my main character might be doing some things she shouldn't be doing just to get back at her cynical, bitchy best friend, which is probably something we're all too familiar with, eh? So yeah, I think I will leave it there for now, but I do hope that you will keep yourself up to date about Dead Rockstar, which will be out in November, but there will be other teasers and other cool promotional things before that, and as I said, the cover reveal was Friday, so go check that out for sure. And if you're interested in my other work, my novel Monarchs Under the Sassafras Tree is already out in bookstores, available online as well. You can go via our local Athens, Georgia bookshop, avidbookshop.com, or you can order that from regalhousepublishing.com. That book is historical fiction and quite different in tone from what I just read. I don't believe in like sticking to one genre. That's not my thing. So, but if you like historical fiction, check that out for sure. If you're solely into like the fantasy and the funny stuff, hold out for Dead Rockstar. That will be available from Parliament House Press, and you can totally go on their website and find out more and do pre-orders and all that good stuff. And I hope that you will stay happy and safe over the next few days. Stay home. Listen to some good music or something. I would recommend Alice in Chains or Nirvana, or Typo Negative, or Prince, or anything else. So I will see you next time. Bye, folks.